Okay, so on this channel, I like to 100% complete games, or for the most part, get an unhealthy amount of platinums. There's something about fully completing a game that, gets me a little excited. And after my most recent video where I platinum Lies of P, I wanted to dive straight into another Soulslike to test my skills. But while browsing for other Soulslikes just to see what's out there, I stumbled upon a hidden gem. A Minecraft mod that was supposedly very popular, however had barely anyone talking about it. So I decided to take it upon myself and conquer Minecraft's hardest Soulslike, Nightfall Craft Casket of Reveries. Now, as a mod pack with barely any online presence, I would basically be on my own throughout my journey, where I'd have to defeat all mainline bosses, as well as an entire separate storyline of bosses, and then to top it all off, I would need to fight these secret upgraded variants of the previous bosses, all while discovering powerful weapons, unique charms, insane structures, and dying hundreds of times. So let's just get straight into this. I made a world and named it Keyboard Sound, as the typing sound effect in this pack was beautiful. Anyway, upon loading in, I spawned in the realm of dreams, and after real quick letting my skin load in, I moved forward till I reached this NPC, Kronos Soul. She dumps a whole fuck ton of lore on us, which can be easily summarized. We have to collect the eyes of every god and place them on these pedestals to be able to destroy the true evil entity. Hopefully that made sense. The lore in this pack doesn't really matter anyway, as we all came here for the bosses and to watch me suffer. So after reading what felt like the entire Bible, we end the conversation with her and she gives us a Renaissance stone. It's essentially just a boss compass. After using it, the boss's location will be highlighted on the map, so that'll be useful shortly. However, first I simply searched around the realm of dreams and encountered two other helpful NPCs. Firstly, the Old Orn, the realm's best blacksmith. He basically allows us to forge different weapons and later on will allow us to craft some of the best equipment in the game. I then talked to the second NPC, Ain, who was the enchanter and wizard of the realm. She would allow me to basically craft different scrolls, allowing me to use a unique range of spells. After speaking with Ain, I unlock a new chapter in the quest book. This book basically has a ton of quests you're able to tick off by completing the pack, and in this video I will be completing every boss related quest. Anyway, enough with the boring quest and dialogue, we all want to see some combat. So I went to this arena within the dream realm and entered the mini combat tutorial, and it's just the exact same mechanics as any Souls-like really. You've got your normal light and heavy attacks, you can dodge, block, and parry enemies, and soon we'll uncover the special abilities this game's combat has in store. For now though, I moved past this tutorial and met with the fairy. She'd be our bridge to the overworld, and it's through her where later on I'd be able to obtain artifacts. I'll explain the artifacts after the first boss, but anyway, I finally teleported to the overworld, and if it hasn't been made clear yet, this mod pack is nothing like normal Minecraft. It's honestly impressive how this doesn't even feel like Minecraft, and instead it feels like another brutal Souls-like. One that, makes me want to jump off a 10-foot skyscraper. Anyway, we spawn in this village, and of course it's nighttime, so obviously I raid this village's house so I can sleep. Now my first quest told me to find the Adventurers Guild, something that I assume would help me get a head start on my journey. But after looking around the village and finding nothing, I went off to this camp and took my first death to this pillager here. However, I am a man of resilience, so I went back and tried to find him a couple more times, only to get humbled. It was clear I needed to level up, and apart from this Adventurers Guild quest, which spoiler alert I never completed, there's another quest in that book to fight the first boss. So using that resonance stone, it gave me a location of a land tower where I could obtain my first eye, the Eye of Desert. However, the tower was pretty far, so I had to run for a good few minutes. When I finally reached the tower, I made sure to place a bed down and set my spawn before going inside, just in case. Which proved to be a smart choice as I almost immediately died. It's clear I needed more gear, so I farmed the enemies as occasionally they would drop their armor. I then also went through Minecraft's early phases of getting wood and crafting a pickaxe so I'd be able to mine the mob spawners in this tower. Once mined, the spawners would drop a monolith key, an item used to summon the first boss at the top of the tower. So after dying some more, I sprinted up, placed a bed, and spawned in the first boss, Baron Mule the Entombed Watcher. And it's here I'd get my first taste of the classic Souls experience, dying repeatedly until I eventually would figure out how to defeat the boss. And I quickly learned that in this mod pack, parries would be extremely overpowered, especially when combined with the skills that would heal you and increase your health on a successful parry. So with my newfound knowledge, I conquered the boss, which gave me some very useful rewards. The first one being the Eye of Desert, which we can place on the first pedestal back at the Realm of Dreams. And upon talking to Kronos Soul, she explains that the Resonance Stone will lead us to another boss after it's charged. So in the meantime, I looked at my quests and I saw I needed to pray at the statue here, which gave me some very good upgrades such as improved health and stamina, as well as a couple ability stones that give you a skill point each, and I instantly spent those on those parry upgrades. Also, I wanted to quickly mention that here I discovered I could fully customize my UI, so I basically just made everything smaller for a better view of the game. I just thought this was a cool feature, so I wanted to point it out. Anyway, I returned to the overworld, and while waiting for my resonance stone to charge, with my newfound upgrades, I went back to that pillager camp from earlier and made sure to slaughter everyone there, as revenge is my middle name. I also raided absolutely everything to inflict as much pain as possible. But yeah, we're basically just waiting at the moment. However, I had another quest in my book that seemed like it could provide some useful upgrades, and that was to head to Chimera's prison and fight an optional side boss. Only problem was the prison was 5,000 fucking blocks away, so I set out on a massive journey during which I found some interesting structures, such as this Japanese temple that had a parkour minigame which was physically impossible to complete as I couldn't place blocks and everything was 2 blocks high. I assume I just needed some sort of double jump artifact to complete it. Another structure I found was this surface level cave which housed a monster that genuinely made me jump out of my seat. So instead, I chose to absolutely cheese this enemy and hit him through the walls. Except eventually, I guess the monster understood my bullshit and fucking leaped out, giving me the biggest jump scare and killing me instantly. So I respawned and holy fuck is this creature terrifying. I managed to kill it though, oh my fuck. I also stumbled upon a coliseum which housed this massive blazing phantom that I ignored completely. And then right before the prison, I stumbled upon a random side boss which was this sunbird that launched massive beams of light that instantly killed you. She also spawned in so many minions that would just create chaos on the screen, like what the fuck is this? After countless deaths though, I killed her and wore her mask in spite. Anyway, after all this running, I found the prison which housed the Bone Chimera, and I had to release his soul from the prison by defeating him in a boss fight. He was pretty easy though with all my new upgrades, so I took him down, which didn't actually give me anything that useful. So basically, it was all a complete waste of time. Regardless though, the stone was charged, so I used it and marked the location of the ocean tower, which bro, why is this tower 2,000 blocks away? So after a lot more running, I realized at the start of the game I had been given a dragon egg, and all I needed to do was feed the dragon food so it would grow. So I just bone mealed a bunch of carrots. I would need a saddle, so I had to defeat the ocean boss first regardless, so at least I'm not the biggest idiot and wasted hours of my life running. Before going to the water tower though, I had to go to this frog village and mine these amethyst blocks that had cursed creatures living inside. Doing so made the frogs happy, and they gave me this water necklace that would significantly help for the boss fight. Ignoring whatever that was, I made my way to the ocean tower and mined some of the spawners around the place to get some monolith keys that I could use at the bottom of the tower to summon Murezu-un, Idol of the Drowned. A relatively easy boss considering all my new upgrades, which upon defeating gave me some useful items. One was an artifact essence which would drop from every boss, allowing me to obtain artifacts, which just gave you unique upgrades and bonuses. I immediately used one to get a saddle though, so I could mount my dragon. Oh fuck yeah. I also got the Eye of Abyss that I placed on its pedestal. While waiting for the stone to charge again, I prayed at the statue and used the ability stones, mainly to just purchase more parry upgrades. I'm telling you, these are overpowered. Working towards the next boss, I talked to Ain and discovered a memory relating to the fallen soldier, or aka the next boss we're fighting. And upon talking to Kronos' soul, she infused the Renaissance stone with his memory, cursing the stone, causing it to guide me to an ocean monument where the fallen soldier is trapped. So after flying there and retrieving his lost helmet, I'm able to enter the Rockwind ruins and fight Leonidas, the fallen soldier. With all my parry upgrades though, this boss was a breeze. Killing him rewarded me with the Eye of Curse and the usual ability stone and artifact essence, which I made sure to spend. I placed the eye on its altar and I also prayed at the statue again for my stat bonuses. After the resonance stone had been charged up again, I used it to locate the next boss who would be hidden deep underground. So I just had to mine straight down, and what's the worst that could happen? Okay, I made sure to use water and safely reach the underground tower, which at the top housed Obthurin, God of the Core. A fucking badass name for a challenging boss. Yeah, I was due to be humbled at this point after how easily I killed the previous bosses. What made things worse was the constant magma on the floor dealing heavy damage over time. Could I have just mined it? Yes. Was I way too lazy? Of course. Anyway, I took a lot of deaths to this boss, especially because this guy had a phase 2, where he would hit me with these insane flurry of attacks. After nearly breaking my setup, I pushed through and defeated him, rewarding me with the Eye of Flame and the usual rewards. I made sure to place the eye on its altar and I prayed at the statue. And that was all the overworld bosses complete, so to obtain the remaining eyes, I would need to jump through different dimensions. Starting with the Nether, which had a few quests I could do here, as well as some very powerful items I could craft, that I would definitely currently need, as upon reaching my first structure I pretty much instantly died. I then crafted the Cinder's Soul Cooler, which would summon an optional boss, and again I got humbled so insanely quickly. So with my ego being destroyed, it was time to get powerful. First I gathered some materials for an enchantment table. However, this is modded Minecraft, so I turned that enchantment table into the enchanting infuser, which would let me just pick the enchants I wanted. So I maxed out all my gear with protection and sharpness. However, that still wasn't enough to fight the nether bosses. I needed powerful gear, so I set out to get the best armor set in the game, Lady Maria armor, as well as just the general great protection this armor provides. When wearing the full set, I would regenerate my health over time and get an insane strength boost. For this armor though, I needed netherite, so I went strip mining and I also looted a couple bastions until I had enough for the set. Well, enough for everything but the chest plate, as another item I needed were moon crystals, an extremely rare item that could occasionally drop when killing any enemy in the game. And at this point in my run, I had only obtained 3, so basically it was just a waiting game until I got the final crystal. For now though, I crafted the other 3 pieces and felt prepared to tackle the evening boss. A mini boss which would give me a nether monolith key, allowing me to spawn in the next boss. Anyway, with my new upgrades, Evening Ghost didn't give me too much trouble, and I was able to head to Magic Citadel, where the next main boss would be located, near Blaze King Tyrant. And honestly, with my upgrades, this guy posed absolutely zero threats. Killing him dropped the Eye of Monstrous that I used to pray at the statue, and I placed it on its pillar. Our next goal is to obtain the Eye of Mech, which we get for killing the Wither. Before the Wither though, I wanted to get my chest plate as I had obtained a moon crystal earlier, but I also needed more netherite and diamonds. And I kid you not, I went to go mine for diamonds, so I just mined straight down. And after barely strip mining even 50 blocks, I found a massive vein of 8 diamonds, so that was incredibly lucky. To get my netherite, I decided to farm the ancient knight enemies that killed me earlier, as they sometimes dropped ancient debris. I was farming them at this one structure, and for some reason an insane amount of piglins was spawning here. Like, what the fuck is going on right now? Anyway, I was finally able to craft the chest plate, which was the last piece I needed for Lady Maria's armor. I also crafted this weapon which inflicted blunt damage, piercing through armor. This sword also had some pretty cool special abilities, and I'd be using it for quite a while. At this point I was pretty well off. I had the best armor in the game and a decent weapon. And before fighting the Wither, I wanted to test my skills on something challenging. So it's at this point in the video I'll introduce the late game bosses found in the Cloudland, which you enter when right clicking one of the eyes on the altars. In each Cloudland dimension there would be a unique mega boss, which were the final bosses of the game, all of their drops combining into the true 100% completion item, the Proof of Adventure. Some of these bosses were extremely difficult, however they dropped very good rewards. Anyway, for now I simply wanted to test my luck on a couple of them, so I started with the boss Maledictus, which I'd find in this insane fortress. And even with my insane upgrades, these bosses still had a handful of attacks that could instantly kill you if you weren't careful. However, apart from these moves, this boss was pretty easy, not gonna lie. I also tested my newfound strength on the Leviathan, a massive purple water creature that had some crazy attacks. But again, my upgrades proved worth it as I easily destroyed him. Anyway, I'd fight the rest of these bosses after the main story, but for now I continue with the main objective of fighting the Wither. So I farmed some Wither skeleton skulls, actually getting my first one from the first Wither skeleton I killed. My luck faded though, as it took me a while to get these skulls. After getting the third one though, I returned to the overworld, went far away from my base and spawned him in. And compared to normal Minecraft, the Wither in this mod pack was so extremely easy. So I killed him, which gave me the Eye of Mech that I then placed on its altar. For killing the Wither, I also unlocked a very useful ability which would let me use my sword to take flight, making travel very easy. The penultimate boss would have us traveling to the Ether, a new dimension introduced in this mod pack that I'm sure every Minecraft modded player is familiar with. So to get to the Ether, I used glowstone and some water to craft a portal, and upon entering, I used the resonance stone, which located 3 different dungeons. The first one here had me fight a mini boss to get a sky monolith key, similar to the Evening Ghost, and she was very easy. The second dungeon was actually a massive maze which housed the Valkyrie Queen. She was pretty easy to defeat, so with my 2 monolith keys, I went to the third dungeon, which was a sky tower, where I summoned the next boss, Vezkrin, Sky Goddess. And honestly, at this point in the game, I was very powerful, so I took her out with ease. I was rewarded with the Eye of Storm, which I placed on this altar, and now we're on to the final mainline boss of the game, where I would have to go to the end and face the dragon, as well as the final boss hiding inside. So I made sure to farm up some endermen, and then I reached the stronghold, which in this mod pack is actually a massive fucking castle. I placed the eyes in the portal and jumped straight in. Upon entering, the dragon slowly spawned in, and instead of taking a normal approach and destroying the crystals, I simply used my sword to fly around and attack him, slowly just killing him. However, it's not that easy, as upon defeating the dragon, Shol Losnir, the warped guardian, would spawn. We have a short conversation where they exchange some lore dumps that I don't really care about, and then we enter the final boss fight. fight. This guy had some crazy attacks, like this full-on time warp attack that would distort everything on the screen. But again, with my upgrades, I actually wiped the fucking floor with this guy. A bit anticlimactic, I know, but for his defeat, I obtained the Eye of Void. Upon returning to Kronos' soul, she went silent and then started chanting some random phrase until we got teleported into these battlegrounds and are forced to fight ourselves. Yes, the final boss is actually Kronos' soul herself, who fights us as a mimic version of us. And my god, was this fight miserable. Not because of the amount of deaths, because there were actually 0, but simply due to how long the fight took. I don't know why, but this boss's health was so insanely high for no reason. It genuinely took like 30 minutes of straight slashing my sword to kill him. So after suffering and probably causing arthritis in my right index finger from all the clicking, I defeated myself, and that completes the game rolling credits. However, as I spoiled earlier, this is not the true end of our 100% journey, as I still had to defeat every Cloudland boss. Starting with Ignis, who wasn't too difficult, however he had a second phase where he turned blue and goes Super Saiyan with his attacks. I also fought the Elder Guardian, who was very easy. They also had a second phase where the floor would break and open up a new area, but that was the only interesting part of that fight really. Using the Ender Guardian's drops, I crafted the Gauntlet of Guard, which helped me defeat the Ancient Remnant, who was a giant skeleton dinosaur. He had an insane charge attack that could literally just one-shot you. Moving on, I conquered Cecilia, the Ether Cloudland boss. She was also a very easy boss this late into the game, as I was fully upgraded out now. And finally, the last Cloudland boss for this 100% was the Netherite Monstrosity. Cool name for an incredibly weak boss that for some reason would start the fight at half health, so I don't know what that's about. With all of these Cloudland bosses defeated, I was able to craft the Proof of Adventure, the ultimate 100% completion item, marking the end of our journey through this pack. Except wait, there's more. Earlier when killing the Wither, I got the Wither Soul Stone, which when combined with a Ghast Tear could allow travel to Infinite Samsara, a special secret dimension where using drops from some of the Cloudland bosses, I could summon secret, harder variants of those Cloudland bosses. And I won't cover each boss individually, however these bosses were extremely difficult. The large range of attacks that could one-shot you, as well as the absolutely insane amount of health these bosses had, leading to a 20-minute boss fight. And not to mention, when you take damage, these bosses, they actually heal up. So you have to try and not get hit for majority of these fights. This experience was not fun, and the only reward is the best sword in the game, which you'd think is pretty cool. When killing each boss, it would provide an upgrade for the sword, such as auto blocking, spawning a doppelganger, and projectile swords you could launch at enemies. However, there's no need for the best sword in the game. When past these bosses, there's actually just nothing else to do or fight. Still, for your guys' entertainment and to stick to the 100% rules, I made sure to kill each of these bosses. Now officially marking the 100% of Nightfall Craft Casket of Reveries. Overall, was this a good mod pack, and better yet, was this a good Souls-like? First off, as a Minecraft mod pack, it's crazy to see what they accomplished here. It still has those Minecraft elements, however the entire gameplay was overhauled to match a Souls-like, and to me, they definitely accomplished that goal whilst also maintaining cohesion throughout the pack, as it would have been easy to just add heaps of bosses and call it a Souls-like. However, the quests and the Eyes of the Gods allow for an easy progression through the pack. As for a Souls-like itself, there were some pretty unique bosses, weapons, and structures. However, there definitely were some issues I had. One being the insane health bars on some of the bosses. Like, I was never going to die, but it just adds more time to the fight. That's it. It doesn't make things harder, it just makes it more boring. And I will say, the power leveling was also all over the place. Some of the earlier bosses were so easy, and some of them I couldn't even beat till the end game. I'm talking about you mini-boss that I spawned in and didn't even fight till the end of the game. Still, the pack's positives definitely outweigh the negatives, and if you're into Minecraft or Souls-likes, there's definitely a lot of fun to be had here. However, there's one thing we can say for sure, and it's that Nightfall Craft Casket of Reveries is definitely Minecraft's hardest Souls-like. Goodbye.